Thank you so much for joining me today. This is part 2 of the Unholy War. And so if you didn't listen to last week's, I really encourage you to listen to that before you listen to today's, because this is really the second part of it. And I've just carried straight along from where I was. So all the introduction's been laid. So now what I want to do is start with the scripture that I ended with last time, and that is Zechariah chapter 12. And I'm going to be reading the same 3 verses I read last time, and then I'm going to pick it up from there. This is the word of the Lord concerning Israel. The Lord, who stretches out the heavens, who lays the foundation of the earth, and who forms the spirit of man within him, declares, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding people reeling. In other words, people are going to get drunk, and like their minds are going to become unhinged with everything relating to Jerusalem, Israel, the Middle East. But Jerusalem is going to be the center of everything. Judah will be besieged as well as Jerusalem. So in other words, he's talking here about Israel and the area around, well, the whole of Israel, which is not that much, and Jerusalem in particular, are going to be besieged. That means they're going to be surrounded by enemies. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, and again, I'm going to pause here to say at this moment, and this is in September of 2025, we see that even nations that have historically stood with Israel are turning against her. America is one of the only ones standing with her, but France and some of the other European nations are actually pushing against Israel, and they're wanting a Palestinian state. I'm going to get back to that in a moment. On that day, when all the nations of the earth are gathered against her, I will make Jerusalem an immovable rock for all the nations. All who try to move it will injure themselves. You come against Israel. You're not going to injure Israel. You're going to be injured. Then the leaders of Judah will say in their hearts, the people of Jerusalem are strong because the Lord Almighty is their God. They're already saying that, but only the observant Jews. There are a lot of secular Jews still in Israel who are Jews by nationality, but they don't follow the God of Israel. On that day I will make the leaders of Judah like a fire pot in a woodpile, like a flaming torch among sheaves. They will consume right and left all the surrounding peoples, but Jerusalem will remain intact in her place. And if you have been watching anything to do with Israel on the news, and it's almost impossible to miss it, you will see that all the nations around Israel have been attacking her. You see Gaza from, I nearly said the left, from the west. You see Lebanon more in the north. You see Syria. Well, they haven't actually attacked, but some of the rebels are in there. You see what in Judah and Samaria, which is called the West Bank. This is where another group of Hamas-like terrorists abide, and they are also attacking all the people living in those areas. And so wherever you look, and then you've got Iran bringing in intense firepower from the air. And so Jerusalem is surrounded by enemies, and yet she is taking out these enemies with all the weapons and the Iron Dome. There was another scripture I was reading this morning about how God's going to protect Israel like birds, that fly overhead. And you see the Iron Dome, but also there's David's sling, which is another form of weaponry, a defensive weapon, to take out in the air all the things that are fired, the ballistic missiles that are fired at Israel. The Yemenis, the Houthis in Yemen, which is further south, they are also attacking Israel. So all those surrounding nations are attacking Israel. And if you look at them, you see where the Israelis have bombed them, and there is just disaster and chaos. But Jerusalem is intact. There have been a few missiles that have landed, and there will be a few buildings that are damaged. But all inherently, Jerusalem is standing intact. And then to go on with Zechariah, the Lord will save, this is verse 7 now, the Lord will save the dwellings of Judah first, so that the honor of the house of David and of Jerusalem's inhabitants may not be greater than that of Judah. On that day, the Lord will shield those who live in Jerusalem, so that the feeblest among them will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of the Lord going before them. On that day, I will set out to destroy all the nations that attack Jerusalem. And here we see something that is progressive. In the beginning, you see God standing with Israel, and there have been miracles, many, many miracles that have taken place and have been recorded in the 2 years. It's next month. It's going to be 2 years anniversary since October the 7th, 2023, when those dreadful, just that dreadful attack on Israel. And there were a whole bunch, thousands of young people who were at that music festival, and so many of them died, and then 200 hostages were taken. And the world seems to have forgotten that Israel did not start this war, that Israel were attacked, and they were attacked on a holy day, and all of this had been planned ahead of time, and there were atrocities that took place during this attack, where babies were beheaded, babies were burned to death. If you want to argue about that, just go and look at a video that Ben Shapiro has put out, which he was able to get from people who had taken it. I can't watch it because the atrocities are so bad. As it was, I saw one girl being taken hostage, and where I saw just seeing the back of her and the stainings on her dress. It was just too appalling. And to see these old people taken and paraded in the streets of Gaza was too much for me. And you know, what we forget is that Gaza belonged to Israel. You know that Israel still doesn't have everything that God promised. He promised everything from the Golan Heights right down to Egypt, and right in Transjordan was actually promised. That was another part that was given away to Arabs, although it was initially intended for Israel. But when you look at the small area of land that Israel has got left, and you recognize all the areas around it that are completely Arab lands, we tend to forget that it belongs to Israel. Gaza belonged to Israel. But back in, I think it was 2005, Ariel Sharon was the Prime Minister of Israel at the time. And what he did was, he was always known as a hawk instead of a dove. You know, when you have generals, you'll have a hawk general, and he's one who wants to fight. And a dove general is one who'd rather make peace. And Ariel Sharon was always a hawk. But suddenly he changed. And what he did was he decided to give land in exchange for peace. And there'd been negotiations, and so the Palestinians, I nearly said the Philistines, because that's actually what they are. The Palestinians had said that if they were given Gaza, they would compensate by not attacking Israel. And so Ariel Sharon actually bulldozed down the people the Jews who refused to leave Gaza. Their homes were bulldozed to the ground. But many Jews left of their own accord. They left beautiful homes, beautiful gardens. They left greenhouses where flowers were growing, which they would send all over the world. They would export them to all over the world. Everything was completely left. And the Jews were removed. They even dug up the bones in the cemeteries so that there wasn't even a Jewish presence of dead people. And they left Gaza willingly. And the Palestinians could have taken Gaza and just continued and made it even more of a paradise than it was. They had beautiful beaches, beautiful greenhouses. The land was flourishing. But instead what they did was they immediately burned the greenhouses. I mean, they could move into the homes that had been built. They could have just received that as a blessing and lived good lives. But instead, what they did was they burned the greenhouses to the ground. They destroyed everything that the Israelis had built. And they began to accumulate money so that they could dig an underground, just almost an underground city, so that they could use those to attack Israel. And immediately they got into Gaza, the rocket attacks came, where they attacked Israel day and night with rockets. My daughter, who actually is on House of Destiny as an Israel Update, Christy, had a certain app that she put on her phone way back before they ever went to live in America. And she had that app on her phone, and every time there was an attack on Israel, the alarm would go. And she kept it there so that she was aware day and night of the ongoing attacks against Israel. And this has been kept up, just non-stop. And now it's as if it's all Israel's fault that Gaza is in the condition it's in. But Gaza was given in this beautiful, pristine state. And the Jews were forcibly evicted by their own prime minister and brought into central Israel. And so the lies that people are being told, the lies that they are swallowing, the side of the line they've chosen to stand on is the wrong one. And so in the teachings in some of these that I'm just going to speak about in a few weeks to come, you'll really hear some of the truth about it. I'm starting teachings at Open Skies on Wednesdays at 9 o'clock. It's with a particular group of people, but anybody is welcome. And so if you'd like to come in, you would be very, very welcome. And God bless you, and I am going to continue next time.